This year, 23 AD, Emperor Tiberius' son dies under strange circumstances, and the Qin dynasty finally falls in China as a new emperor and old dynasty come to the forefront. Welcome to the Yearly Histories, where we will highlight the major events that take place in the Common Era year by year. Last year, we saw Emperor Tiberius believing Tacfarinas' revolt has ended, Tiberius granting tribunician powers to his son Drusus, and chaos in Nanyang, with several revolts lashing out in all directions. Starting off again with the rebellion against the Roman Empire in North Africa, led by the Berber rebel Tacfarinas. The previous year, the Romans under Quintus Junius Blasus inflicted a serious defeat on the rebel army, even capturing the brother of Tacfarinas. Emperor Tiberius believed this to be the end of the unrest, and this year disbands the rest of his forces tasked with quelling the revolt. Turning to matters in Rome, Tiberius makes the order to throw all actors out of Rome. Although some actors are immensely popular and the spectacles they put on for the Roman people have been a part of many celebrations and general entertainment, they are viewed as very lowly and lacking virtue. They are considered to be on the same social level as prostitutes and not afforded the same rights as other professions, which the Romans see as much more honorable. Tiberius' son, Drusus, has seen a sharp uptick in responsibilities in past years, through his father awarding him a military triumph, naming him consul, and granting him tribunician powers. But in personal matters, he has come to despise the commander of the Praetorian Guard, Sejanus, a man who was rewarded the position by Tiberius himself in 14 AD as one of his first acts as emperor, and he has inserted himself into all levels of politics since then. Thus, Drusus feels he is competing with Sejanus for the ear of his father. The feelings are mutual for Sejanus. He has nothing but disdain for the heir to the empire. Months earlier, tensions ramped up when Sejanus seduced Drusus' wife, Livilla, who had probably grown tired of her husband's constant adultery. The situation culminates with Drusus and Sejanus coming to blows with one another. Additionally, the crafty Sejanus is able to convince Livilla that he has fallen in love with her, even going as far as divorcing his wife to prove his intentions and advance his position. She joins his plot to take out the imperial son, and with her help, Drusus is slowly poisoned and dies from what seems like natural causes. A funeral is held for Drusus, with Tiberius delivering the eulogy to the mourning Senate, who probably begin to realize at this point that Sejanus will now be unrestrained in his ambitions, considering Emperor Tiberius is blind to any ulterior motives the Praetorian prefect may have. Tiberius seems to now find himself in a similar predicament to his predecessor, Augustus, who went through multiple heirs until finally landing on Tiberius, who stuck. Drusus was his only biological son, so now he has to look elsewhere to find his next heir. With that, he turns to the remaining eldest sons of Germanicus, the 17-year-old Nero Julius Caesar, who is wed to Drusus' daughter, Julia Livia, and another boy named Drusus Caesar. Terrifyingly, Sejanus shifts his devious gaze towards these two very green young men who have no idea what is coming for them. From this point forward, Tiberius seems to lose even more interest in the empire and occupies himself solely with the pursuit of pleasure. Even during his eulogy, he stated, quote, "I, however, have sought sterner solace. The arms in which I have taken refuge are those of the Senate," unquote, signaling his intentions that have been coming to the forefront slowly for years after backing away from imperial duties and even residing in the countryside for the entire year of 21 AD, allowing his son to take the lead. Lucius Aelius Sejanus, who seems to have slowly inserted himself into almost every aspect of the imperial administration and is already the commander of the powerful Praetorian Guard, now begins to dominate the Roman Senate and the discontented Tiberius, who looks at him quite affectionately. It is widely viewed by prominent Romans that the shady Sejanus has eyes and ears in every corner of the empire. In approximately this year, the Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian Strabo completes his renowned work Geographica, which presents a descriptive history of people and places from different regions of the world known during his lifetime. Strabo is also known for producing some of the most advanced world maps seen to this date in the ancient world. He's traveled extensively, as he says, quote, "Westward I have journeyed to the parts of Etruria opposite Sardinia, towards the south from the Euxine to the borders of Ethiopia, and perhaps not one of those who have written geographies has visited more places than I have between those limits." Unquote. In China, we resume the situation in war-torn Nanyang. Growing rebel armies led by Liu Xuan and Liu Yan have allied with one another. Although the locally stationed imperial forces were able to score a victory against Liu Yan's army, he responded by recruiting even more rebels and is now poised to do some damage. To start this year, Liu Yan's contingent meets the imperial army head-on once again, and this time leaves as the victorious party while killing two of the opposing army's commanders. Liu Yan now controls the greater part of Nanyang, and he begins to besiege its capital, Wan. At this point, messengers fan out from Nanyang and spread the word that Emperor Wang Mang should be overthrown, and enumerating his supposed crimes. The rebels decide that now is an opportune time to legalize their rebellion and declare their own emperor to topple the ailing Qin dynasty. They come to the decision that the Han dynasty, which Wang Mang had overthrown in 9 AD and lasted for over 200 years beforehand, dominating all of China, should be restored by raising up a member of the Liu clan. The prime candidate is Liu Yan, due to his successes in amassing an army and defeating Wang Mang's forces. The top chieftains, who have joined Liu Yan's cause, decide that him being named emperor would rob them of their influence, and believe he would function as a creature of the nobility. They turn their attention to Liu Xuan, another member of the Liu clan, and Liu Yan's third cousin, who is at the head of his own smaller army. They expect that if they select him as emperor, they will be able to dominate him. Thus, they make the final decision to raise up Liu Xuan as the new emperor and their candidate to restore the Han dynasty. He is now known as the Gangxi Emperor. Liu Yan argues his case, but his attempts are in vain. The very chieftains and soldiers who joined his cause and followed him turn their shoulders and abandon him. The rebellious movements all begin to consolidate around the Gangxi Emperor by the spring, with their chieftains being compensated fairly. At last, the city the Han army has been besieging, Wan, falls to them, and the Gangxi Emperor declares it to be his temporary capital. During these major events, Wang Mang had ordered the mobilization of a great army to match that of the rebels in Nanyang, and sends it out. They advance on the newly titled Han army from Yingchuan, who then retreat to Kunyang as the imperial Qin forces begin to besiege the city. In the night, the brother of Liu Yan, Liu Xiu, is able to escape undetected and return at the head of a mass of rebel warriors. They then proceed to attack Wang Mang's massive army from two sides and utterly rout them. Wang Mang is now at his breaking point, as word begins to spread about the decisive defeat of the Qin army at Kunyang. Many officials in the capital, Chang'an, begin to plot against him. Some are discovered, and those conspirators are executed or commit suicide. Elsewhere, local administrators in China begin to shift their allegiance to the Gangxi Emperor and the Han Restoration. Additional rebellions break out all across the empire from north to south. In the aftermath of the victory at Kunyang, one of the rebel chieftains brings trumped-up charges on Liu Yan, who still remains a political threat to the Gangxi Emperor and other chieftains. They waste no time and execute him immediately. His brother, Liu Xiu, decides not to protest the unjustified killing of his brother and is rewarded accordingly by the Gangxi Emperor, being promoted to general. The Han army now looks to Chang'an, and it begins its march towards the capital. Wang Mang's last defenses are crumbling. Other clans in the surrounding area look to take advantage of the situation and surround the capital searching for loot. These men break into the city in October and ransack everything they can find. Even residents within the city join these rebels and force their way into the imperial palace. Now the vultures are circling, and at dawn the next day, Wang Mang's supporters take him to a terrace where they make their final stand. They are soon overrun by the rebels, and Wang Mang is killed and beheaded in the flurry of chaos. All of this takes place before the official Han army even arrives at the city. Wang Mang's head is transported to Wan, where it is presented to the Gangxi Emperor and later displayed in the marketplace of the city. Days after, Luoyang, the second largest city in China, falls to the Hans. The Gangxi Emperor decides to make this his new capital. We end this chaotic year in China with most of Wang Mang's officials changing their allegiance to the Gangxi Emperor, and he begins the process of consolidating his rule. Liu Xiu, who is now taking a much more prominent role in the new administration for his loyalty and heroic actions rallying the rebel forces to crush the Great Shin army, is sent on a mission to the northern part of the Great Plain to pacify the region. The Hans may have control of a significant portion of China, but the Red Eyebrows army still remains in Shandong and just reaches east of Luoyang as the year ends, so it is not fair to say that the Han dynasty has truly and officially been restored quite yet. The other rebels don't look to be backing down, so a new chapter of the civil war in China is just beginning. Even in the west, control of Xiyu or the western regions has been lost by now, after years of deterioration of control once held in the region and Wang Mang's incompetence. We will leave the situation right there. Now it's time for In Memoriam, where we look back on the lives of prominent figures who died in the year. Drusus Julius Caesar, the son of Tiberius and Vipsania Agrippina, was born in Rome in 14 BC. His name at birth was Nero Claudius Drusus, but in 4 AD, he added Julius Caesar to his name following his father's adoption into the Julii by Augustus. Drusus made his entrance into the world of politics in 10 AD, taking the office of quaestor. His career went on to slightly mirror that of his stepbrother Germanicus, who, in the end, may have held similar offices and titles, but far outshone him in popularity and achievements. Near the end of his life, Drusus began to feud with the Praetorian prefect Sejanus, who was accused by Tacitus of being the person that orchestrated his premature death. Wang Mang was born in 45 BC in the Wei Commandery, to a family whose origins can be traced back to the kings of Qi during the Warring States period of China. His elder sister, Wang Zhangjun, was consort to Emperor Yuan of the Han dynasty and remained politically relevant for the rest of her life. Wang Mang slowly accumulated political power during the years of the late 10s BC and early 10s AD through granting himself important political titles, taking advantage of the political weakness of the child emperors, and having his daughter married to Emperor Ping of Han. Eventually, he made his move and dismissed the young emperor Ru Ziying from the throne, taking the title for himself and founding the relatively short-lived Qin dynasty, while also demoting the status of the former Han dynasty imperial family members. Being greatly inspired by the works of Confucian scholars, he acted immediately to mold imperial China to his worldview by making major reforms. He implemented state monopolies on popular goods, abolished slavery, and announced sweeping land redistribution reforms. Wang Mang found that some of these reforms were such a change from the previous administration that they were unenforceable, and all of the new systems he put in place began to break down immediately after promulgation. Before even getting going in his new role, disaster struck in 11 AD as the Yellow River catastrophically flooded, leading to massive famines across China over the course of the remainder of his emperorship. Bands of agrarian rebels began popping up, as well as more coherent forces eventually, such as the Red Eyebrows, the Lulin rebels, and those led by the members of the Liu clan, which would take power from the corpse of the Qin dynasty in the end. Year over year, the situation worsened, with Wang Mang doing nothing effective to respond. He lost his claim to the mandate of heaven as the population began to realize they were in for a tough time. Every army he sent out to control the situation met the same fate, with the rebel armies only multiplying year after year. By the end, his fate was sealed and there were no options left that he could take to avert the crisis. It showed up right on his doorstep on his last day, and he met an unceremonious fate, losing his head. Wang Mang was a very ambitious and idealistic man who used whichever means he could to gain power. Once he forced his way into becoming Emperor of China, he was slowly faced with the fact that the vision he had for his empire was not to be. He attempted to boldly change the course of history and forge his own dynasty, but once it came to an end, he was the sole member of the Qin dynasty. Liu Xin was a Chinese astronomer, mathematician, and politician during the Han and Qin dynasty eras. For centuries, the Chinese have been using the value of 3 for pi in mathematics, until Liu Xin was able to calculate the value to 3.41547, although his method for this is unknown. Once Wang Mang came to power, he was promoted to the position of Guoshi, or Professor Laureate, a very powerful minister position to help Wang Mang's vision to return China to the lost ways of the ancient sage kings, a golden age of order and peace. Over the course of his work, he aided the Qin bureaucracy to standardize volumes of liquids and other measurements. We will leave this year, 23 AD, with significant deaths occurring on the 2 separate ends of the Eurasian continent. Drusus, the only biological son of Emperor Tiberius, is supposedly killed by a conniving character in Sejanus, who continues to climb the ladder of power in the Roman Empire. Far away, Wang Mang is killed, and his attempt to transform China to his Confucian-inspired worldview and forge a new dynasty is snuffed out for good. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to be notified when the next iteration of the yearly histories will be released. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next year in 24 AD to continue the fascinating stories of the world of antiquity and cover its major events.